Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wizard. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. Hello, Philippe McKie. The first question I have is, how did a Montreal boy such as yourself end up making movies in Japan?
Awesome. Yeah. So funnily enough, I get asked that question quite a bit, especially in Japan.
Mm.
And it's funny, I've been asked that question so many times, and every time I'm hit with it, I feel like I should have something ready. But I
Mhm.
just I always improvise every time. So basically I got interested in Japan when I was a little kid. Um, and it started out, sounds cliche, but just seeing some really crazy anime and reading some mangas and feeling like this is unlike anything I've ever seen before. And where is this coming from? So as a teenager growing up, I was, very interested to travel to Japan. And I was able to make that happen, after working a bunch of part-time jobs. Finally, when I was 19, I got to travel there for the first time. And funnily enough, it was nothing like I had expected.
Huh.
So I had to kind of dismantle, this vision that I had created and start from scratch. And finally, by the time I was just turned 20, I moved to Tokyo by myself and pretty much from day one had this, you know, this dream of becoming a director in Japan. Yeah. And so here now with the release of my first feature, Dreams on Fire, that's pretty much the culmination of 10 years being based in Tokyo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had thought that they had pretty restrictive immigration policies. I didn't know you could just go over there.
So I've gone through the visa rodeo many times. So yeah, if you're just traveling to Japan in non-pandemic times, it's awesome and easy. They give you like 90 days, to travel as
Mm.
you wish. It's when you want to stay longer than that that things get tricky. So let's just say I've gone through many, many different types of visas,
Mhm.
starting out with, student visa, and then of course going into working visas, most recently cultural. So, anyways, it's anyone that's trying to live in Japan, unless they get married, they have to go through this challenging, rodeo of always getting through the visas. But I've gotten used to it after 10 years.
Okay, very cool. And I sort of, it makes sense to me, and sort of expected the answer to be like just because it's cool. I went to Japan when I was in grade 9. We're
Oh,
around the
awesome.
same age. I'm 33, so I went there, and people would say, "Why do you want to go to Japan?" And
Mhm.
I guess my answer in my head was because it's cool. Like, do I need more of a reason than that?
Word. I'm curious, in your case, what was the coolness? Do you have an image for it? Like, was there something in particular that
Well,
made you think
I
that
was
Japan was
definitely
cool?
into the culture. Like I liked like the TV shows and stuff, and video games and PlayStation 2, and I wanted to play Final Fantasy 10 too before it came to North America. That was a top
Awesome.
priority.
Oh,
When
yeah,
you're
awesome.
14, that makes a lot of sense at the time.
Perfect sense. Actually, my first time traveling in Japan, I met a guy who was like a huge fan of Street Fighter,
Mhm.
and it had, just like you said, it had released in Japan before anywhere else on the arcade machines, and he was doing this kind of like anthropological pilgrimage, going like city by city where it was coming out and analyzing like, yo, in Kyoto, they're very defensive, but then you go to Tokyo and it's all about like the fireball attacks, and I'm like, damn, that's deep.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Who else has done that, right?
Yo, but it's, you know, one thing I love about Japan is
Mhm.
that you find these very, very deep subcultures and these like groups of people that create like families or bubbles, and they go really, really deep into what they're into.
Mhm.
And that's something I love. And I find that it creates, something that keeps me like wanting to make films in Japan is that I do feel like there's this cutting edge in like the art underground that's being created there. And that's very exciting to me coming out of those subcultures.
Very cool. So, how does it feel to have completed your first feature film and then get it into the Fantasia International Film Festival? I know
Ooh,
you've got a couple shorts in
yes.
there before, but how does it feel to get the feature in there?
Okay. So like I feel that there's two questions there, like finishing the first feature and then getting it into Fantasia.
Yeah.
Um on the first feature notes, I it's funny to say, but I really, really love Dreams on Fire. I feel like all my previous shorts, I feel like if you create something, oftentimes you look at it and you can see like the rough edges, and I look back at my shorts and I'm like, there's things I love of them, but there's also these like elements that are kind of cringe looking back,
Mm.
right? But with Dreams on Fire, I'm extremely proud of what we were able to create, and I love the film. It's unfortunate that, I picked a heck of a year to try to release my first film with the pandemic and everything. And the film actually was released theatrically in Japan and played in a number of cities, and I wasn't even able to be there
That
for the.
sucks.
Yeah, totally surreal.
Yeah.
Um, Anywho, on a very, very positive note, getting into Fantasia is huge for me because Fantasia made me. It started in 96. We're around the same age, me and you.
Hmm.
And I went for the first time in 1997. I
Oh
was a
my
little
god.
kid. Yeah. And I went to go see End of Evangelion on the big screen.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And it just warped my young mind,
Yeah.
and that was the starting point. And then by the time I was in high school, I was going to Fantasia every year, like religiously, getting like dozens of tickets at a time, going like 2-3 times a day. And, it just created this love of Asian cinema and Japanese cinema. It exposed me to all this incredible, like international cinema, which is something new for me. And I remember, like in the later years when I was in film school and going to Fantasia, I would sit there with all those hundreds of people in this like almost this religious experience, watching films together and just having a blast together and seeing the directors going on stage and being like, "Yo, someday wouldn't it be crazy to be, in that position?" And then this year, in just a week, it's happening. So it's
Going
very,
down.
very, very surreal.
That's awesome. All right, so tell my audience what the plot and themes seen in Dreams on
Ooh,
Fire.
all right. So Dreams on Fire is the first ever Japanese urban dance film. So it's the first time that we're getting to see on screen many of the top dancers in the country. And story-wise, it's a theme that perhaps is familiar that we've seen before, but I tried to do it in a fresh way, which is it's the story of someone that's trying to reach their dreams. A girl from the countryside who wants to be a dancer and her family's opposed to it, who runs away to the city and is trying to become a professional dancer. So I think going into the film, that's what people know about the film, and that's perfect because we've seen this type of like tale told before, and it is a genre, especially like in the States. But watching those films, I felt like I'm very, very tired of this like Hollywood fairy tale of if you have a dream, it will come true, and everyone is the promised one, right? And having gone through that journey a bit myself and having seen many other people who are hustling towards their dreams, I wanted to create a story which I felt was a little bit more like real and the kind of lessons that I wish I had heard, you know, 10 years ago starting out.
Cool. So tell me about the nightlife depicted in Dreams on Fire.
Ooh.
What's it like in real life at like a Japanese nightclub? Because I've never been. I was 14.
Yo, by the way, did you get the chance to watch Dreams on Fire?
Yeah, of course.
Woohoo!
I
Okay,
saw it.
so
I don't know. I saw it 3 days ago or 4 days ago.
awesome. Is the drum and bass rave scene still fresh in your mind?
Yeah. There was some cool clubs. I liked without giving away too much. We
Sure.
we, we peer into the S&M world a little bit in Japan, which I
Yes.
imagine
Yes.
is very intense.
Yes. So here's the thing. In like clubbing in Japan, there's like quite a lot of people that, and maybe it's the same in North America as well, that a lot of people have this like dark image of like the club world, like it's this
Mhm.
dark, scary place. However, I think it's also a very like warm, loving, accepting place. So in Dreams on Fire, spoiler alert to the realities, like I am capturing the real nightlife of Tokyo in the
Mm.
sense that some of those scenes I designed and I really like created myself, such as that S&M scene. But for example, there's a scene in the film which is this like drum and bass rave. And to
Yeah.
make that scene, I actually was able to talk to one of the most famous clubs in Tokyo called Womb
Mm.
and shoot during the number one drum and bass event monthly in Japan called 06S. And we got this like exclusive access to just shoot during the real party. And I designed the shoot around being able to shoot at this real party. So none of those people are extras. You're seeing like
Oh wow.
the real Tokyo ravers. Like that's yeah. So
are
yeah.
these ravers on MDMA or are they just on alcohol?
Yo, that's an interesting topic. Obviously Tokyo is this like huge metropolis, so everything is there. However, drugs are much less present in the nightlife there than they are like in North America or Europe.
Yeah.
So most people are just drinking.
Yeah.
And they're high on life and just tripping on the music. You know what I'm saying? Like people that go to that event, they are like drum and bass heads. And they just want to dance their hearts out and trip to that music. Yeah.
See, that works for me because I don't do any drugs.
Yo,
and the music can be fun, but you know, I don't want to be peer pressure to do anything.
No, and you know what? Like one of the very first things that blew my mind when I was traveling in Japan is when I started clubbing, I was like, whoa, hold up. Like, obviously it's not like this in every single party, but in general, everyone is looking towards the DJ. And a lot of people are dancing just by themselves.
That's funny.
Yeah. And so I was coming from a place where like clubs in my city, like everyone was looking at each other, right? Everybody's just like hitting on each other. And I used to call it the meat rack, you know? and that kind of like, I wasn't feeling that because even as a teenager, you know, sneaking into clubs underage in Montreal, I just wanted to dance and I just wanted to like trip to the music. And so when I started to go clubbing in Japan, I was like, yo, this is a really different vibe. And people are really here, you know, just like facing the speakers and just having their own like experience on their own and not like moshing and like disrupting the people around them. You can find that too, but in general, it's usually a very like safe space and everyone's kind of on their own. Yeah, you would love it. Let's go together someday.
I'm up for it. I was in Berlin last year and they had some interesting clubs there. So that was like, you know, I hadn't been to Europe since I was, you know, same age when I went to Japan, like 14 years old. So doing the European club thing was cool, but you know, I would love to be a tour guide for world clubbing. That'd be great.
Awesome. Yeah.
So what movies would you compare Dreams on Fire to? if you had to.
Oh man, you know what? I wish. Can you help me with this one?
Well, I mean, one thing I thought was The Red Shoes.
Oh my god! That's the best answer you could have ever given.
Yeah, like Black Swan superficially, and because it's more recent. But The Red Shoes in terms of like the sacrifice, right, and the obsession. It's not quite as intense.
100 points.
It's not quite like
100 points for you.
Okay.
What were you going to say? It's not quite as intense.
Well, I mean, it's a little different. You know, I still wouldn't say. I would say it's more in that mold, like the Red Shoes mold, than Black Swan. But I wouldn't say, you know, they're obviously not like verbatim beat by beat.
Honestly, I'm so happy that you gave that answer because if there's one film in the dance film genre that I love and that inspired this film, it's The Red Shoes. And actually, there is a moment in Dreams on Fire, which is a like direct homage to Red Shoes. And like, no spoiler, but it has to do with her having red on her foot. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so it's funny because I always find it interesting when asked like what films inspired the film or like questions like that, because I would say that in making Dreams on Fire and my other films, my inspiration is actually not coming so much from cinema. It's coming more from, in the case of Dreams on Fire, it's a lot of like just me infusing like things that I love about Tokyo and like real places that I love, real people that I've met, you know, having a very much this like social aspect and more like music and photography. Those are bigger inspirations, I feel, than actually other films. in a
Mhm.
way.
I
Yeah.
understand. Okay,
But
how about this?
red shoes, you nailed
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Well, that's a good one to be compared to for sure. So okay, so sort of a different question in the same vein, however. What Japanese movies do you aspire to match with Dreams on
Ooh.
Fire?
Oh, match.
Yeah,
So
match.
so I feel like Dreams on Fire is this like freakazoid unicorn, coming out in Japan. um
Which is saying something.
yeah, and like that's something I love. I feel like, so going in and being like, I'm making a dance film. Off the bat, I was thinking to myself, there has to be a purpose for this film to be made. It can't just be a carbon copy of some other dance film that's been made. It
Mm,
has to, bring something new. So on the one hand, I'm deeply, deeply honored, and it was also a big pressure to feel this responsibility to show the underground dance world of Japan for the first time on screen. And there's like a lot of scenes in the film. For example, we're the first ones to shoot a Vogue event, like a voguing ballroom event, and put it on screen. And so all these people were trusting me, like, okay, we're letting you into our nest
mhm.
because and hopefully they are happy with the result. Um, I don't say there's any like direct, you know, film I'm trying to like match, but I do
Yeah.
have a few Japanese films that I love with all my heart. My top three Japanese films are Ugetsu from the
Okay, yeah.
50s. Yeah. And Tampopo.
Yeah, that's great. I love that
Yeah.
one.
And Memories of Matsuko. Have you seen that one?
No, what's that one? Tell me about that one.
Yo. So actually, I saw this film at Fantasia.
Oh,
The
nice.
title again is Memories of Matsuko. And I remember when we saw that screening, the vibe at the end of the film in the room, I'd never felt anything like that before. It was like you could cut the emotion in the room like with a knife. It was just so thick, you know? It was so thick. So if for fans of something like Amélie Poulain, something like a fantasy drama, like fusion of a drama, but also with these like fantastical elements,
Mhm.
I recommend Memories of Matsuko with all my heart.
That's amazing. I gotta tell you, I interviewed Takashi Miike a couple of years ago.
Ooh,
That was kind
yes.
of fun.
He's a hallmark of Fantasia for sure.
Oh my god, right? All the
Yeah,
time.
he should be the
And
mascot.
and my other big Asian director that I got to talk to, well, actually Sabu. I talked to Sabu, who's in
Oh,
yeah, you know Sabu,
sick. Yeah.
and also Jang Yamu.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Zhang
man.
Yimou. But from China, right?
Yeah, from China.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
God. Epic.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, yeah.
Whew.
It was.
Which
It was.
one, which,
Uh,
not to put you on the spot, but which of those interviews was like the most fun or interesting?
oh, well, I would say the most fun was Takashi Miike.
Okay.
He had a lot of good answers that were humorous, but James pretty. That was solid stuff. He was very like deliberate. He would think about his answers, and I
Ooh.
would, I was interviewing him. It was sort of like bad for radio. It was more like a Prince interview because there were really bad acoustics in this like club we were
Oh
in.
man.
It
I
was
see.
like nobody was partying, but it was bad acoustics. But like upstairs, Paris Hilton and Kit Harington were hanging out by the bar. So that was
Fun.
can't really forget that, right?
Oh, that's awesome. I'm a huge fan of his art direction. Like
Oh yeah, I
everyone,
bet,
yeah.
huh?
Whew, yeah.
Were you
Huge fan.
channeling some hero in this?
Oh my God. So Hero has some of the best fabrics and motion on film I've ever seen, that's for sure.
Oh
And
my
I'm a
god,
huge fan of Christopher Doyle. Like, of course.
I agree, definitely. All right. One more question, and thank you
Yeah,
very much for your time. It's a lot of
of
fun
course, of course.
talking to you about Japan and making movies in Japan. But my final question is: what do you think the advantages and disadvantages for you as being
Mhm.
a white Canadian making movies in Japan?
Cool. I'd say there's a big pro and there's a big con. The pro is that I would say that when I'm approaching someone that I want to work with,
Hmm.
and with Dreams on Fire, for example, I was able to work with a lot of like legendary artists that I've been dreaming of working with my whole life. For example, Akajimaro, who plays the grandfather, or even the famous rope artist Hajime Kinoko. And when I approach them, you know, if I was Japanese, they might be like hella skeptical of like, who's this like first time feature director coming to me, you know?
Right.
But I feel like being a foreigner in Japan, like reaching out to them, it's kind of like, I don't know, fresh or like destabilizing that it's like they might let their guard down for just a moment, you know, to give me time to do my pitch, right? um, so I'd say that that would be a pro. The con, however, is that as soon as you are in that meeting, you do need to know how business is done in Japan and like the etiquette and all of that aspect. So that pro will only bring you so far. And then you need to show that you're able to like to work in a way that's comfortable for someone that's used to the Japanese system. Yeah.
Is there anyone else like you in the country?
Ooh, so if we're talking just like people that are from abroad, it's funny, you know, like for me to say foreigner is such a, because when you're in Japan and you're talking amongst other international people, regardless of where you're from, we are all the same. We're all just foreigners.
Yeah.
It's like that's a term that you just get used to using, you know, very easily. The pool of like international filmmakers in Japan is quite small, and we all get to know each other very quickly if you're actually working. As far as international filmmakers that are actually pushing and doing features, there are only a couple of us.
Wow.
And the type of films we're making are totally different. There hasn't really been, to my knowledge, a foreign filmmaker that has really established themselves in Japan and really like become a director that like people know and respect. A few of us are, you know, hustling and trying to make that happen. One of my friends who I respect a lot, who's like probably the other most aggressive international person in pushing right now in Tokyo, his name is Anshul. And yeah, he just finished his second feature, a beautiful film called Kontora. But he recently told me that he doesn't want to be doing Japanese language anymore, which is something that happens. Like I've met a couple, like old school foreign filmmakers in Japan that have been in the game for a while. And they're like, yeah, you know what? You know, there's no potential to like continue doing stuff Japanese language. I am still pushing that I want to continue doing Japanese language, and I'm gonna put everything I got into trying to make that happen. Yeah,
that's amazing. This is so cool. It's such a singular interview for me. I've never, you know, entertained any of these ideas that you have in your head, and I really enjoyed your movie.
Much.
Thank you so much for talking to me. Have a great day.
No problem. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for today. I really appreciate it.